I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. My name is Mark, and I've been married to Kelly for 5 years. We had what I thought was a good relationship. We laughed, shared our dreams, and built a life together. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never suspected anything like this was brewing beneath the surface. Recently, though, things felt off. Kelly had been more distant, spending late nights at work and coming home with a strange scent of perfume I didn't recognize. I brushed it off initially, thinking maybe she was just stressed or going through a phase. After all, she worked as a marketing executive and the pressure could be intense. But deep down, a nagging feeling took root. I started noticing other signs, the way she'd glance at her phone with a guilty look or how she'd become evasive when I'd ask about her day. One night I woke up to find her talking in her sleep. At first I thought it was just a random dream, but then I heard it. She was mentioning a name, Jason. My heart dropped. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand and hit record, hopping to capture whatever she was saying. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was confessing to having sex with him. When I realized what was happening, I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I got out of bed quietly, letting her talk, as she rambled on about their secret rendezvous and how much she enjoyed it. I stopped the recording after a few minutes and just stood there, stunned. Here I was, a husband who thought he had a loving wife, only to discover she was betraying me in the most intimate way. I didn't know what to think or how to feel. Anger, betrayal, sadness, it all washed over me in waves. The next morning I played the recording for her. I stood there, arms crossed, trying to gauge her reaction as she listened to her own voice admitting to the affair. Her face went pale and I could see the panic set in. "Mark, I can explain." She stammered, her eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. I wanted to scream, to lash out at her for the pain she had caused me. Instead, I remained calm, almost eerily so. "Explain what, Kelly? Explain why you were sleeping with Jason, or explain how you thought I wouldn't find out." I felt my voice steady, though inside I was a storm of emotions. She began to stutter, coming up with excuses that I knew were lies. "It's not what you think. I was just in a vulnerable place and he was there for me." I couldn't believe the audacity. Vulnerable? You think that gives you a pass to cheat, to lie to me? My fists clenched at my sides as I fought to keep my composure. She tried to play the victim, claiming that I hadn't been attentive enough, that I didn't pay enough attention to her needs. It felt like a slap in the face. "Kelly, you made a choice. You chose to betray me, not once but repeatedly." I could see her squirming, desperately trying to turn the tables. "You don't understand what I've been going through." She barked back, but I could see the cracks in her facade. The tears in her eyes were not for me but for herself, for the facade she had built crumbling around her. As the confrontation continued, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. The woman I thought I knew was slipping away, replaced by a stranger who had betrayed me. I had to collect my thoughts. I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. At that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't wallow in sorrow or let her excuses define me. I would take control of my life, even if that meant letting her go. But first, I needed to figure out how to navigate the mess that was our relationship. I had to confront the reality of our situation, and that was just the beginning. Whether it was a rush of adrenaline or the clarity of emotion, I knew that I could not let this go unanswered. I had to think through my options, and I had to do it carefully. I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying our interactions and the betrayal over and over in my mind, trying to strategize my next steps. The emotional turmoil was dizzying, and I had to come to terms with the fact that my life was about to change in ways I could never have anticipated. The days that followed were a blur. I found myself oscillating between anger and disbelief, struggling to come to grips with the reality of Kelly's betrayal. Each day felt like a new layer of pain unveiling itself, and I was left to sift through the wreckage of our marriage. I wasn't just heartbroken. I felt humiliated and disrespected. The woman whom I had trusted with my life had shattered that trust into a million pieces, and I had to figure out how to piece together what remained. The first thing I did was reach out to a close friend, Jake. He was the type who always had my back no matter what. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me rationalize this mess. We met at a local bar, and as soon as I sat down, I poured out my heart. I told him everything, how I discovered Kelly's affair, her excuses, and how I felt utterly betrayed. Jake listened intently, his face a mix of concern and disbelief as I recounted Kelly's words during her sleep. "Dude, that's insane," he finally said. "You have to confront her, but you also need to think about what you want moving forward. This isn't just about her, it's about you too." I nodded, taking in his words. I knew I had to confront her again, but this time I would come armed with the truth that she had tried to bury. I couldn't let her manipulate me into feeling guilty for her choices. I had to reclaim my narrative. Before confronting her again, I took a few days to gather evidence. I started looking through our shared accounts and phone records, trying to piece together the timeline of her affair. I felt like a detective, sifting through the digital breadcrumbs of her betrayal. I found texts and call logs that led me to believe this wasn't just a fling. It was an ongoing relationship that she had been nurturing behind my back. As I uncovered more evidence, my anger transformed into a cold resolve. I was no longer just a victim in this story. I was ready to take charge. I decided to set a date for our next conversation, a weekend evening when I knew she'd be home. I wanted to make sure she was completely unprepared for what I had planned. The day of the confrontation arrived, and I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. I spent the day preparing myself mentally, practicing what I would say. I wanted to be calm yet firm, to lay everything out without letting her emotional manipulation pull me off course. When Kelly walked through the door that evening, I could tell she sensed something was off. I'd been quiet, and my demeanor had changed. She tried to engage me in small talk, but I cut her off, leading her to the living room where I had set everything up. "Kelly, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked at me, her brow furrowing with concern. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone more defensive than curious. I took a deep breath. "I've gathered some information, and I think it's time we face the truth. You need to stop lying to me." Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment I saw the realization that maybe I knew more than she expected. I pulled out my phone and showed her the texts I had found. "You think I wouldn't find out? Here are the messages between you and Jason. You think this is just going to go away?" She opened her mouth to protest, but I held up my hand. "No more excuses. No more lies. You talked in your sleep, Kelly. You admitted to the affair. Your words confirm everything I suspected." She tried to regain her composure, but I could see the panic rising in her eyes. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "You don't just accidentally have sex with someone. This was a choice you made. And now it's time to own it." For a moment she fell silent, her eyes darting around as if searching for a way out. I could see the gears turning in her mind, desperately trying to formulate a way to spin this to her advantage. "I was feeling lonely, Mark. You were so wrapped up in your work, and I made a mistake." "But it wasn't just a one-time mistake, was it? You were involved with him for months. You let it go on while we built a life together." "While I trusted you," I shot back, unleashing the tidal wave of emotions I had been holding back. I could feel the anger boiling within me, but instead of letting it consume me, I took a breath and said, "I need to know how you really feel. Are you still seeing him? Do you want to be with him?" Her response was hesitant, her voice shaky. I don't know. I was confused. Maybe I thought I loved him, but what?" I pressed, my patience thinning. "You thought you could have it all. You thought you could play both sides without consequences." As we continued to exchange harsh words, I could feel the gravity of what was happening. This wasn't just an argument. It was the unraveling of everything we had built together. And I knew that whatever decision I made next had to come from a place of strength, not weakness. With every word, I felt a sense of liberation. I was no longer the man who would let her walk all over me. I would take control of my future, regardless of how painful it might be. As the confrontation reached its peak, I understood that this was just the beginning of a long road ahead. I had to decide what this betrayal meant for my life, whether I would fight for our marriage or cut my losses and walk away. The emotional impact was heavy on my chest, and I knew that whatever came next would change everything. As the confrontation escalated, I felt like I was in a whirlwind of emotions. The weight of Kelly's betrayal was suffocating, but I was finally confronting the woman who had shattered my trust. I was ready to put an end to the chaos in my mind. The anger coursing through me was powerful, but so was the sadness that clung to my heart. "Mark, please, let's not do this," Kelly pleaded, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. I thought you didn't care anymore." I couldn't let her turn this back on me. "No, Kelly, this isn't about me. This is about you lying and betraying my trust. You had every opportunity to talk to me about how you felt, but instead you chose to cheat. Can't we just forget it?" She begged, desperation creeping into her tone. "I'll cut things off with Jason. I promise." The audacity of her words struck me. "Forget it? You think I can just forget that you had sex with another man, that you sought comfort in someone else's arms while I was here believing everything was fine?" She looked down, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was so lonely, Mark. I thought you were too focused on your job and I felt abandoned." I shook my head, the disbelief palpable. "You could have communicated that. You could have sought help, but instead you chose betrayal. You chose deceit." With every passing moment, I felt more resolute. I had spent years investing in this relationship, and it felt like I was holding onto a sinking ship. I couldn't keep ignoring the signs. I had to face the truth. This wasn't just a couple of mistakes. This was a breakdown of trust on a monumental scale. "Mark, please," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I love you. I made a terrible choice. Can't we work through this?" Frustration bubbled within me. Love. You don't just love someone and look for affection outside the relationship. That's not how it works, Kelly. The room was thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings, and I could feel the enormity of the situation bearing down on us both, but I felt a clarity emerging from the chaos. I didn't want to wallow in anger or sadness. I needed to decide what I wanted moving forward. "Here's the thing," I said, my voice steadier now. "I need time to think. I can't just forgive and forget. I need to consider what's best for me and my future. If you truly mean what you say, then you'll let me take the space I need." Her initial resistance faded, replaced by a sense of understanding. "I'll give you time," she said softly, wiping her tears. "But please know I'll do anything to make this right." I didn't respond. I felt exhausted yet oddly liberated. I had set boundaries for myself, and I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was no longer going to be the passive partner experiencing pain in silence. I was reclaiming my power. Walking away from that confrontation was one of the hardest things I had ever done. I felt a mix of relief and sorrow as I retreated to my room. Inside, I was still reeling from the betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Would I ever be able to trust her again? How could we rebuild our marriage after such a profound breach of trust? The reality was that I didn't have any answers. I needed time to process everything and figure out what I wanted my life to look like moving forward. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on self-care. I spent time with friends, went to the gym, and immersed myself in work. But no matter how busy I kept myself, the thoughts of Kelly and her betrayal lingered in the back of my mind. I found myself feeling lost in a sea of confusion, trying to navigate my emotions while also contemplating the future. Every night, I would look at the empty side of the bed, a stark reminder of how things had changed. I missed the intimacy we shared, the warmth of her presence beside me. But I couldn't ignore the betrayal that had shattered the foundation of our relationship. I reached out to a therapist, someone who could guide me through the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. During our sessions, I learned the importance of addressing my feelings honestly and openly. I needed to understand not only the impact of her betrayal, but also what it meant for my self-worth and future. Therapy became an outlet for the anger and sadness I was grappling with. I began to see the value in standing up for myself and recognizing that I deserved a partner who honored and respected me. As I absorbed the lessons of self-love and accountability, I slowly realized that I couldn't allow her mistakes to define my worth. It was during one of those sessions that I began to understand the importance of making a choice that would ultimately shape the direction of my life. I could choose to remain in a marriage built on broken trust, or I could choose to prioritize my own well-being and happiness. It became clear to me that, Regardless of Kelly's apologies or promises to change, I had to consider what was truly best for me. And while my heart still ached for the life we had built together, I couldn't ignore the reality of the situation. I had to take control, and that meant making some tough decisions. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to emerge stronger from this experience. I began to prepare myself for the possibility of ending our relationship, which was a painful realization, but I knew it was a necessary step toward healing and reclaiming my life. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself caught in a constant battle between my heart and my head. The emotional toll of Kelly's betrayal weighed heavily on me, yet I felt a growing sense of clarity about my situation. Therapy sessions became a sanctuary where I could express my frustrations, fears, and uncertainties without judgment. I was learning to embrace my emotions rather than suppress them, and it felt liberating. During one of our sessions, my therapist, Dr. Hargrove, posed a question that struck me deeply. Mark, what do you envision your life looking like if you chose to stay in this marriage? And what if you decided to leave? The question hung in the air, demanding my attention. I realized that I had been so focused on the betrayal and its immediate consequences that I hadn't fully considered the long-term implications of either choice. I took a moment to reflect, envisioning both scenarios. If I stayed, I imagined a life filled with resentment, where every interaction with Kelly would be tainted by the memories of her affair. Trust, once the foundation of our relationship, would remain fractured, and I would likely be haunted by doubts and insecurities. I could see myself constantly questioning her fidelity, struggling to rebuild a connection that had already been severely damaged. It felt suffocating. On the other hand, if I chose to leave, I envisioned a future that was uncertain but also filled with potential. I could embrace new opportunities, rediscover my passions, and build a life grounded in self-respect. The thought of freedom was both exhilarating and terrifying. The idea of moving on and healing felt daunting, yet it also sparked a flicker of hope within me. I think I'm leaning toward leaving, I finally admitted to Dr. Hargrove, my voice steady despite the churning emotions inside me. I can't keep living in this state of distrust and pain. I deserve better. She nodded, her expression encouraging. Making that decision is a brave step. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and happiness, especially after experiencing such a betrayal. After that session, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I began to prepare myself for the difficult conversations that lay ahead. I knew I had to tell Kelly about my decision to leave, but the thought of that confrontation filled me with a mix of anxiety and determination. I chose a Sunday afternoon, a time when I knew she would be home and hopefully calm. I wanted to ensure that I could express myself clearly and without distractions. As the hour approached, I practiced what I would say, trying to anticipate her reactions and prepare for the emotional fallout. When I finally sat down with her, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation. "Kelly, we need to talk." She looked at me, a mixture of concern and apprehension on her face. "Is everything okay, Mark?" I couldn't sugarcoat it. "No, everything is not okay. I've been doing a lot of thinking since our last conversation, and I've come to a decision." Her expression shifted as she braced for what was to come. "What do you mean?" "I can't stay in this marriage. I need to prioritize my own well-being, and I can no longer live with the betrayal and distrust that your actions have caused." There was a moment of silence as her eyes widened in shock. "You can't be serious," she stammered, her voice trembling. "We can work through this. I can change, I promise." I raised a hand to stop her. "Kelly, this isn't about you promising to change anymore. It's about me recognizing that I can't be in a relationship where I feel constantly betrayed and insecure. I deserve better than this." She started to cry, and my heart ached for her even in this moment of clarity. "Mark, please don't do this. I love you. I'll fix everything. Just give me another chance." Her pleas tugged at my heartstrings, but I had to remain resolute. "You say you love me, but love doesn't betray. Love doesn't involve lies and deceit. I need to prioritize my mental and emotional health, and I can't do that while staying in this toxic environment." Kelly's tears flowed freely now, and I could see the realization washing over her that I was serious. "So, that's it. You're just going to walk away?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm walking away to find my own happiness. This is not something I take lightly, but I have to do what's best for me." The conversation lingered in the air, heavy with the weight of our shared history. I felt a mix of sadness and relief as I spoke those words. I had made my choice, and while it was painful, I also felt a sense of liberation. We spent the next few hours discussing the logistics, how to divide our assets, the apartment we had shared, and how to untangle our lives. I could see the hurt in her eyes, but I also felt a sense of resolve. I was reclaiming my life, step by step. As we outlined the next steps, I felt like I was finally shedding the layers of pain that had weighed me down. It was a long and difficult process, but I knew I was moving toward a future where I could heal and rediscover myself. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on everything that had transpired. I felt both sorrow for what I was leaving behind and a sense of hope for what lay ahead. I had made the choice to prioritize my own happiness, and I vowed to myself that I would embrace this new chapter with open arms. In the days that followed, I began the process of healing. I reached out to friends for support, dove deeper into therapy, and started setting new goals for myself. It was a journey filled with ups and downs, but I felt determined to emerge stronger and more self-aware than ever before. I was finally taking control of my life, leaving behind the shadows of betrayal and stepping into the light of possibility. The road ahead might be challenging, but I was ready to face it head-on. I had learned a powerful lesson about self-worth and the importance of standing up for oneself, and I was excited to see where this newfound strength would take me. As the weeks turned into months, I began to feel a sense of normalcy returning to my life. Choosing to leave Kelly had been one of the toughest decisions I had ever made, but with each passing day, I felt more at peace with it. I was embarking on a journey of rediscovery, and I was determined to create a life that reflected my true self, one built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. The process of separating was painful, but I was grateful for the support I had from friends and family. Jake was a constant source of encouragement, always checking in to see how I was doing. One afternoon, he invited me out for a hike to clear my mind. As we walked through the scenic trails, I found solace in the natural beauty around me and the camaraderie I shared with him. "Mark, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself," Jake said, his voice steady as he navigated the rocky path. "It takes a lot of courage to walk away from a situation like that." "Thanks, man. It hasn't been easy," I admitted, taking a deep breath of fresh air. "But I think I'm finally starting to understand what I want for my life." "You deserve happiness, brother," he replied, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "And you've got the chance to build something new now. Don't rush into anything, but definitely keep your heart open." His words resonated with me. I knew I was ready for a relationship just yet, but the idea of exploring new connections didn't seem as daunting anymore. I was learning to embrace my independence, and I felt a growing confidence that I hadn't experienced in years. As I settled into my new routine, I also focused on self-improvement. I enrolled in a photography class, something I had always wanted to try. Capturing moments through my lens became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to express my creativity and see the world from a different perspective. Each click of the shutter felt like a step toward reclaiming my identity. However, there were still moments when memories of Kelly would creep into my mind, and the pain of her betrayal would wash over me. I'd replay certain moments, wondering how things had gone so wrong. But instead of allowing those thoughts to consume me, I started to reframe them. I reminded myself that I had made the right choice for my own well-being. Then came the day when I received a message from Kelly. It was brief, just a simple text asking if we could talk. Part of me hesitated. I had shielded myself from the emotional turmoil of our past, and I wasn't sure I was ready to confront it again. But another part of me felt a need for closure. I wanted to hear her side and understand how she was processing everything. I agreed to meet her at a cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of our shared home looming over us. When I arrived, I spotted her sitting at a small table by the window, looking more vulnerable than I had ever seen her. The familiar pangs of hurt reemerged, but I also felt a sense of empathy for her. "Hey," I said softly, taking a seat across from her. "Thanks for agreeing to meet." "Thanks for coming," she replied, her voice quiet. She looked hesitant, as if she were searching for the right words. After a pause, she took a deep breath. "I wanted to apologize, Mark. I know I hurt you deeply, and I've spent a lot of time reflecting on my actions. I never meant to betray your trust." I nodded, listening intently. "I appreciate you saying that, Kelly. It's important for me to hear, but it's still hard to process everything. The trust is broken, and it's going to take time, if it's even possible to repair it. Do you think there's any chance we could find a way to work through this?" she asked, her eyes searching mine. "I've been seeing a therapist too, and I realize now how much I took for granted. I want to understand what went wrong and how we can fix it." Her vulnerability was genuine, and part of me felt a flicker of hope, but I had to remind myself of the pain I had endured. "Kelly, I've been doing a lot of healing myself. I'm not sure I'm ready to revisit our relationship. I need to prioritize my own happiness right now." "I get it," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I miss you. I miss us. I know I made terrible choices, but I'm trying to be a better person. I want you to know that." Hearing her express those feelings stirred complex emotions within me. While I appreciated her honesty, I also realized I couldn't allow old feelings to lead me back into a situation that had caused so much pain. "I appreciate you reaching out, Kelly. But we both need to continue focusing on our own paths right now. I can't go back and pretend that everything is fine." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I understand. I just want you to know that I'm truly sorry for what I did. I hope you find happiness, Mark. You deserve it." As we parted ways that day, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. I knew that this conversation wouldn't change the past, but it allowed me to see Kelly in a new light. She was taking steps to confront her mistakes, and while it wasn't enough to win back my trust, it was a step forward for both of us. In the following weeks, I continued to focus on my personal growth. I embraced new friendships and even began dating casually, something that felt exhilarating yet vulnerable. Each interaction helped me realize that I was capable of connecting with others, and I was slowly learning to trust again. Through all of this, I held on to the lessons I had learned from my experience with Kelly. I understood the importance of communication, honesty, and self-respect in any relationship. It was vital to choose partners who valued me as much as I valued myself. As I navigated this new chapter, I felt hopeful about the future. I was no longer defined by my past, but by my resilience and determination to forge a path that was true to who I was. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to embrace whatever came next with open arms. The healing process had brought me so much clarity, and I was excited to see what life had in store for me. As the months continued to unfold, I found myself navigating the complexities of life with a newfound strength. The decision to leave Kelly had ultimately led me to rediscover who I was outside the confines of that relationship. The process of healing wasn't linear, but it was paving the way for personal growth that I never anticipated. I had started dating casually, and while I approached new relationships with caution, I was pleasantly surprised by the connections I was forming. I met a woman named Sarah at a local art exhibit, and we hit it off instantly. She was kind, genuine, and most importantly, emotionally available. Our conversations flowed easily, and I found myself laughing again, something I hadn't done freely in a long time. As our relationship developed, I felt my walls begin to crumble. I communicated openly with Sarah about my past, sharing the lessons I had learned from my experience with Kelly. She listened without judgment, and her understanding and compassion felt refreshing. I realized that I was beginning to trust again, not just in others but in myself. Around the same time, I continued to focus on my photography. I began to explore different styles and took on small projects that allowed me to express my creative side. I even entered a local photography competition, not expecting much, but hopping to challenge myself. Much to my surprise, my work was well received, and I ended up winning first place. It felt like a validation of my journey, a reminder that I was capable of achieving great things. Despite the excitement, there were still moments when thoughts of my past would creep in, memories of my life with Kelly, the love we once shared, and the pain that followed. But instead of letting those thoughts overwhelm me, I learned to acknowledge them and then let them go. I understood that while the past had shaped who I was, it wouldn't dictate my future. In the spring, I received an unexpected message from Kelly. It had been several months since our last encounter, and I felt a mixture of anxiety and curiosity as I opened her text. She wanted to meet for coffee, saying she had something important to discuss. After some deliberation, I decided to agree. I was in a different place now, and I felt ready to face whatever she had to say. When we met, I could see that she had changed. There was a sense of maturity in her demeanor, and she seemed genuinely remorseful. We sat down at a cafe, and she took a moment before speaking. "Mark, I've been doing a lot of thinking," she started, her voice steady. "I wanted to reach out because I realized how much I took for granted. I've been working on myself, and I understand now that I hurt you deeply. I'm truly sorry for everything." I listened, my heart feeling a mix of emotions. "Thank you for saying that, Kelly. I appreciate your honesty. It's taken me a long time to come to terms with what happened. I know I can't change the past, but I wanted to let you know that I'm moving forward too. I've started therapy, and I'm committed to becoming a better person. I hope you find happiness, Mark. You deserve it." Her words struck a chord within me. I could see that she was genuinely trying to take responsibility for her actions, and while it didn't change the past, it was a step toward healing. I realized that I had already let go of the anger and resentment I once carried. I had moved on, and now I could finally wish her well without the burden of unresolved feelings. "Thank you, Kelly. I truly wish you the best as well," I replied sincerely. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a sense of closure. It was as if a chapter in my life had finally closed, allowing me to turn the page without looking back. I left the cafe feeling lighter, ready to embrace the future ahead of me. In the months that followed, my relationship with Sarah continued to blossom. We took trips together, explored new places, and learned about each other's passions. She inspired me to pursue my photography even further, and we often collaborated on creative projects. I realized that I was not only healing from my past, but also building a beautiful life filled with love, laughter, and mutual respect. Reflecting on my journey, I understood that while the experience with Kelly had been painful, it had ultimately served as a catalyst for my growth. I had learned valuable lessons about trust, vulnerability, and the importance of prioritizing my happiness. I was no longer defined by my past. Instead, I was a testament to resilience and the power of self-discovery. As I looked to the future, I felt a renewed sense of hope. Life was full of possibilities, and I was ready to embrace them all. I was grateful for the lessons learned, for the friendships forged, and for the love that had come my way. I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them head-on. I had taken my life back, and I was excited for the new adventures that awaited me.